So I got rejected from nearly everywhere for a period of about 2 years. That was very brutal. When I was younger, I thought I was going to be a marine biologist, and now I'm a Sunday Times best-selling author of fantasy books. I'm going to be talking about everything: how I got my first agent, showing my query letter, showing rejections that I got on my query letter. I'm going to be talking about the competition I entered, which led to me getting my book deal. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is one that is highly requested. I'm a bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie. This is a big story. It's basically the story of my life and career to this point. But today I'll be talking about how I got my book deal, how I became a Sunday Times bestselling author, which is crazy to say. I'm gonna be talking about everything, showing my query letter, rejections that I got on my query letter. I'm gonna talk about the process of finding a new agent when your first agent relationship doesn't work out. There's gonna be a lot in this video, so I hope you can stick around and find something in here that's useful or helpful. And again, as always, if I don't cover something that you want me to talk about, just leave a comment and I'll make a video about it, I promise. For those of you new to the channel, my name's Esme and I wrote The Principle of Moments. It's Treasure Planet meets Atlantis and I absolutely love it. You might know it from the Lumacrate version, which has this absolutely stunning cover and these gorgeous spread edges. Ooh, it doesn't get better than this. I'm also the author of The Church on Ruby Road, which is the novelization of Ncuti Gatwa's first ever Christmas episode as the Doctor. Now, I did not write the episode. I didn't write the episode. I have never written for the TV show of Doctor Who. Whenever I say that I've done a Doctor Who book, people always congratulate me for having written for the series, but I've never written for the series. I have just written a novelization, which I'm very proud of, and this was an adaptation of Russell T Davies' amazing script. I am so proud of this book, and the cover is so beautiful. There's my name and the gorgeous actors and Doctor Who. Whoa. Okay, so that's a lot, but how did I get here? It's a long story. When I was younger, I thought I was going to be a marine biologist, and now I'm a Sunday Times best-selling author of fantasy books. But it all started with the idea that I had for The Principle of Moments. I started writing this book when I was 16 years old. I'd finished a first draft by the time I was about 17 and a half, 18. I edited it for a while, and then obviously because I'd done a few weeks of editing, I thought it was ready to query.
Oh, that's no. In the sense that, no. You know what I mean? Like,
If I could go back in time and slap that laptop out of her hand and be like, just close that and maybe live a little, figure out, you know, how this whole publishing thing works. Don't just dive right in. I love your enthusiasm, but calm down, babe. Wish I could have said that to myself, but I dove straight in with querying. This, I'm gonna put it on the screen. This is the very first query letter I ever sent.
The very first query letter I ever sent.
It's actually not that bad. I don't think it's awful. I think there are definitely things I would change today. And you know what? It's not that different to the query letter that got me an agent, even though I never really got an agent from querying, but this is something that we will discuss later. I also wanted to just jump in here and give a little class on querying, just to give my 2 cents on what makes a good query. I think when querying, people get really caught up in how to distill the essence of their novel or the entire plot of their novel into the least words possible, and that is basically what querying is. What I will say is that when you're querying, you have 300 words or so to make a lasting impression on an agent. What you want to do is tell a story within that query, so I wouldn't get bogged down within the tiny details like I did in the query that I showed. What I would do is try and take the parts of your novel, the beginning of your novel and the premise that really tell a story, and put that into your query. If there's a minor character who's important in the beginning of the novel but doesn't show up for the rest of the book, you can leave them out. If there's parts of context that you think are amazing but don't really work within the query, leave them out. The query is the distillation of the advice, kill your darlings. You need to trim the fat out of the entire sort of like synopsis and just keep that drill down into what is the actual story. Something else that is hard is when you've got multiple POVs. I would say with the query, pick 1 or 2 POVs and query that. If you've got more than 2, it can be really hard. I would say 3 is definitely the max that I would include in a query. I know it can feel hard when it's sci-fi or fantasy especially, but if you can tell a very simple story or the simplest version of your story possible within a query, I would do that. It can feel like a betrayal to the words that you've written in the world that you've built to flatten it so much, but I would say lean into that and just really drill down into the heart of the story and just say that. I know it's difficult, and if you guys want me to make a video on how to write a query, let me know. We should compare what my query was to what my actual jacket copy was. So this is the jacket copy of my book. I'm gonna try and show that here. So this is the jacket copy versus the query. The jacket copy is much sharper, much cleaner, with a much better understanding of the stakes. It's just kind of better. Obviously this has been through an editor, it's been through me multiple times, it's been through a marketing team, a sales team, so this is pretty good. But I still think that the query that eventually got me an agent was really good as well. So now I queried on and off for about 2 years. I would send a batch of queries, get rejected by every single agent under the sun, and then edit my novel, go back over those first few chapters and really try to understand why people weren't going for it or jumping on it. Now, I have a few theories. So this book, as you can see, is a bit of a wacky, weird book, not really fitting neatly into any one category. The current pitch for it is Star Wars meets Doctor Who meets Jane Austen. I love the pitch Treasure Planet meets Atlantis, but that's quite niche and not a lot of people get it. If you know, you know. Agents were struggling to understand where this goes in the market. Now, this is something that's really interesting when you're querying. A lot of times when you're querying, you are writing the book of your heart and soul, especially if it's among the first, you know, few drafts of books you've ever written. It's a story that feels so personal to you, and so it can be really jarring and strange to start thinking about the book in terms of marketability. Where is it sitting on the shelf? What can you compare it to? Even though you have comp titles in your query, I feel like a lot of people reverse engineer the comps rather than thinking about them as they're writing the book. That was exactly what I did, and as a result, I did not have a clear vision myself of where this was going to sit within the market. It was not a commercial idea. It's not an idea that you can sort of say in one sentence and people really get it. I do feel like you have to really sit down and read it, experience the stories and the characters to kind of understand what I was trying to do, which did work to my detriment while I was querying a lot of the time. I also am going to put a disclaimer and say that I'm Black, if you haven't noticed, and for writers of color, it can be harder, despite what some people may think, to query, because a lot of times being not white can be seen as harder to market or something. I don't know, but I do feel as though when I was querying it and it was an all Black main characters, people were thinking, oh, that's not going to sell for a lot of money. I don't know about that. It's just speculation. So I got rejected from nearly everywhere for a period of about 2 years. That was very brutal. It might have just been that the book wasn't good. I don't know about that. What ended up happening was that I quit querying. I didn't want to be an author anymore. I mean, I really wanted to be an author, but I was like, damn. It was like shot after shot after shot. I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Like,
I don't know, I just don't think this is like great for me. I don't want to do it. I want to go home. Like, I can't take the pressure of it. Don't you think any job interview...
So I almost gave up. Then a writing competition opened in the UK for underrepresented writers who were writing science fiction and fantasy. I was like, I think they made this prize for me, guys. I think they might have found out who I was and made a prize for me because it was so perfect. I submitted it as like a last-ditch attempt, throwing my manuscript into the universe, hoping that if it was worth publishing, it would be published. And I was thinking, you know what, even if I can get on the shortlist for this, I will be so happy. Guys, I won.
Everybody wants to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
They had thousands of entries, and I was a 19-year-old with a hope and a dream. And I entered it and I won, and it was literally a transformative moment for me, because I felt like when you experience so many rejections and you keep hearing like, you can be in a room with 100 people, or whatever Lady Gaga said.
100 people and there can be in a one room, right? And 99 don't believe in you, but just one believes, and it can change your whole life. 100 people in the room you could have, and 99 don't believe in you, and just one does, and it changes your whole life. And there can be 100 people in a room, maybe there is right now, and 99 don't believe in you.
It is true, and I think it's so true, especially for people who are writing things that are a bit outside the mold, or who are trying to like break boundaries with their fiction. You will get a lot of rejection. You will get so much rejection. This is something I really learned the hard way, but all it takes is one yes, and I managed to enter that competition, believe in myself enough not to self-reject, entered it and won it, and that was amazing, and everything kind of snowballed from there. When you get to a moment where you're feeling really stagnant and you feel like you're about to give up and nothing's happening and nothing's moving and you're coming up against this wall, and no matter how hard you push, you can't seem to move yourself forward, that is when you're on the brink of a breakthrough. This has been true my whole publishing career, my whole artistic career. when I get to that moment where I'm feeling like, oh, I really just feel like I'm in the same place, I'm stagnant, it means that I'm about to bring the energy that's going to get me to a breakthrough, or something is about to happen. I've just always found that to be true, and I think it's such a comforting piece of advice, especially if you are in that headspace of like, gosh, why is nothing working out for me? Why can't I seem to make things happen? Just keep going. We don't quit around here. If you've watched any of my videos previously, you know we don't quit. We don't accept that for ourselves. Okay, I got my agent who approached me after I won the competition. Sadly, we no longer work together, but he was my first agent. He sold The Principle of Moments. That's how I kind of got a foothold in the industry, was through that prize. And then the publisher who ran my prize was Gollancz. So they are amazing. They publish authors like Lee Bardugo, Brandon Sanderson, Joe Abercrombie, Garth Nix is published by them. So some real legends of the game. That's where I am today. So this is the Gollancz logo. God, my copy is so battered. Oops. I got a 3-book deal and it was preempted, so I didn't go on a wide submission. We gave them an exclusive submission of my manuscript and they said we want it. They gave us an offer. We then negotiated it, as you do, you know, you and your agent negotiate, and we got it to a place I was happy with, and I signed the deal. So I had a 3-book deal. This all happened in the space of about 7 months, so I went from having absolutely no prospects.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
And then suddenly had a book deal. It was crazy. I sold my publisher world rights, so that meant that they bought the rights off me to publish in all territories all around the world. Did this end up happening? No, it did not. This is no shade to my publisher, like I love them, but it was disappointing for me as an author not to be published in America, not to be published in Europe, not to be published in like some other countries. My publisher did bring my book out in Australia and New Zealand, which is amazing. I know that the trade paperback of my book gets ordered to lots of different countries, so they're kind of importing it and selling it there. I've had people tell me they've seen it in bookshops in Prague and in Amsterdam, which is absolutely insane and such a dream come true. It's been great to get translations, but that is a bucket list item now for me, and it's something I'm going to be working really hard towards. In terms of amazing things, I think my publisher really publicized my book well. I got amazing advanced copies, which I can show you. I'm going to show you actually, 1 second. I've just run to get them. This was my first ever ARC, my first ever proof. They kind of did like a fun version of it. I'm literally out of breath from running. They really went above and beyond with this. And then they also did an exclusive version for YALC. So in the UK, we have Young Adult Literature Convention, which is like a huge event for readers and for authors to do panels and talks and signings. So you can see it says exclusive YALC edition. It's got the same symbol and it was just in a different colorway. So absolutely gorgeous still. These were my 2 proofs. I am so lucky to have got these. These got sent to bloggers and fellow authors for blurbs and all that kind of stuff. And I feel very fortunate to have had such a marketing push that I was getting advanced copies sent out to readers, because that doesn't always happen. And it's okay if it doesn't happen. I just felt very lucky that it did happen to me. Another amazing thing that happened on my publishing journey was that my book got chosen to be in a book box. So my book got put into Illumicrate. Now Illumicrate is absolutely amazing. I love their special editions. I own a fair few myself. So for my book to be chosen as the December box for 2023 was huge. I was so lucky to get this edition, and I'll do a side by side with the actual cover. The covers are quite different in the best way. I really love them. I feel very lucky to have these 2 covers. Now, all of that stuff is incredibly lucky. However, there were huge pitfalls in my career. As I mentioned, I didn't get any, my book was never translated. And also, my book was supposed to come out in the summer of 2022. So I signed my deal in the winter of 2020, bit of a turbulent time. And it was supposed to come out in summer of 2022. It got pushed back by 1.5 years. So it eventually ended up coming out in January of 2024. Now, that was a blow for me. It took me a while to come to terms with that. Unfortunately, it happens all the time in publishing, and you know, it's not every publishing year that there is a huge worldwide pandemic, so that definitely has something to do with it. My editor also left, again, really common. Editors are just people with jobs, so they will be moving around to different publishers just like anyone with a job would move around. Like no one stays at their job their whole life. Like this isn't the 1950s anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like the boomers had it good, but people are moving constantly, because why wouldn't you? And yeah, sometimes that means that authors are kind of left without an editor, or they have a new editor come in halfway through. That's what happened to me. Love both my editors, love my current editor. She has absolutely just lit a fire under me to really get this work done. She's really passionate, so that's great. But yeah, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. A lot of the time there were things go wrong that I would have not wanted to go wrong, and then there were things that were absolutely amazing happen, which kind of make the whole thing worth it. So I think if you're interested in becoming an author, you're gonna have to get used to the intense highs and lows of publishing. There were times I thought my book was never gonna come out during the year and a half that it got pushed back, because it didn't get pushed back in one go. I think that would have been more merciful. It was like, oh, it's getting pushed a month, it's getting pushed 2 months, it's getting pushed 6 months, and I was like, oh my God. And it just kind of added up to a year and a half, and I was like, just let the book come out and I'll be happy. And then obviously you get what you want and you start inventing all these new hurdles for yourself, all these markers of failure that aren't really real. Another topic that I find really hard to talk about when it comes to my debut was switching agents. Now, this is something that happens to a lot of authors throughout their career. It's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed by, but for some reason I felt really like I had failed as an author. It just comes with a lot of complicated emotions, especially because when I signed with my agent, I was 19, and so my agent was my gateway into the industry. They were the person who really was showing me the ropes and kind of introducing me to people and all that kind of stuff. I think with your first agent, you kind of have like a foundational relationship, and so it can feel strange to kind of go it alone or break away from that for whatever reason. Without going into too many specifics, I just felt as though I was really working hard and hustling, and maybe that same energy wasn't being reciprocated. There are so many reasons why you can break up with an agent or why you can decide to find new representation, and it is honestly a case-by-case basis. But yeah, for me it was just a case of wanting to take things in a different direction. There were some things that I wasn't happy with that I couldn't see myself overcoming, if that makes sense. So I thought it's better to have a fresh start for both of us, and that was how I made my decision. There were a lot of tears involved. It wasn't an easy one by any stretch of the imagination, but I now know that it was right for me, and that is a case of listening to your gut. One thing I will say is that querying works very differently when you are a published author and you've got books to your name. When I queried my now agent, who is amazing, I was able to query her because I was referred to her by a friend. I remember when I was querying the first time around and I kept seeing agents who were closed except by referrals, and I kept thinking, oh, I wish I had a referral, I wish I had a referral. I think getting referrals from published authors is something that happens when you've sort of cracked into the industry and broken in, and you're tried and tested, you've got a sales record to your name, and you've basically made friends within the industry who can refer you. It's annoying, but I understand why it happens. It's basically the same in any industry. Like if you want to get a job and you know somebody who works at the company, they can refer you. It's basically that simple. I think of it as I've paid my dues now. I've queried, I've got my agent, I've got a book deal. I am a tried and tested product, and therefore I have advantages. Oh. And therefore I've been able to access a different level of querying, I guess is how I would put it. It is strange to think like that I'm now in this position, but I think it's something that happens as you advance through the industry. So yeah, that's been my journey of how I got published. I will be documenting the process of submission with my new book, which is a witchy fantasy that I've started writing. I'm gonna do a whole vlog from writing the first page to watching the book be in bookstores. I can't tell if I want it to be one big like documentary like video or a series. Let me know what you think. So yeah, that is how I became a published author. It was definitely a long process and really tested me as a human being, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. If you've got any questions about the process, please let me know, and I will do my best to answer them. That is all from me on this video. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about how I became an author. If I've missed anything or there's anything else that you want me to talk about regarding the principle of moments, don't hesitate to leave a comment and I will get right to that. Thank you so much, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.